Hello and welcome to Tutorials to You. My name is Yannick, and if you are interested in C# delegates and you want to find out how to use them, stick around until the end of the video. Now before we get started, make sure to subscribe to our channel because you don't want to miss any of our high quality .NET related videos. Alrighty, so let's get started. I just created a new console application in .NET 6 and I just added a new void here, which is simply printing a string into a console. And in the next line of code right here, you can see that I simply call that method. Now what we want to do is to assign our print function to a variable. Yes, you heard that right. We want to create a variable that accepts functions as its value. Let's simply copy the signature of our void method here, or function, void print string text, and now let's simply add the keyword delegate in front of it. So delegate void print. Now let's rename the delegate from print to print delegate, and let's add a semicolon at the very end of that line of code. Now let's adjust our function that we have right here, void print, and make it of type print delegate. So what we want to do is we want to say print delegate, and then let's give it a name, just like a variable, print equals to. Now let's use some sort of arrow function here so that we have our parameter still available, right? And then we add an arrow, just like you would do it in JavaScript, for example, and a semicolon at the very end. Awesome. So now we have created a delegate and we've created a variable of type print delegate. Now, as you can see, we are still able to call it. Right, in line 7 we are still calling print like the original name of the function, and we are still passing in a parameter here, just like we're doing it, as you can see. Let's just name it print console. You will see why just in a second. So instead of calling it print, we'll call it print console because it prints something into the console. And the main idea behind that delegate that we have created here, that delegate variable, right, is that we can now send in this print to console delegate into other functions, and you will just see that in a couple of minutes in action. Now, since you're interested in such advanced topics like delegates in C#, I should tell you that we have a unique online course for one of the most advanced C# topics, which is ASP.NET Core, right? The main framework for C# web development. And this course is definitely the best way to progress as a C# developer in the fastest way possible. So if you're looking for an easy and affordable way to massively boost your market value as a programmer, right? To land your first job or to increase your salary as a C# developer, you should definitely check this out. You can find the link in the description below or popping up in the info card at the top right corner right now. In this course, you will learn how to build full stack applications using ASP.NET Core and the popular Angular front-end framework. And now let's create another variable. You will soon see why we have to use or why we're using print delegates. So again, we say print delegate, and this time we want to call it print to file. And again, we want to have a parameter here, string text, right? We want to add an arrow function, and then we call file.append all text. And for sure, it just appends to a file called logs.txt that will get created, and then we have text here. Now add a semicolon again to close it, and there we have our second print delegate variable. Both of them are of type print delegate, but they have different functionalities, right? So that one is logging to the console and that one is logging into a file. But even though they have a different name and they have a different functionality, they still share the same delegate type, print delegate. Now let's work on a real use case so that you see why you should use that, for example. So let's keep everything as it is. Let's add a new functionality to our program. So instead of print console, what we want to do is we want to create a new void. Let's call it connect to database. And even though we will not handle that, we will just, well, create it as an example, right? So let's add print delegate here as a parameter type. Let's call it log. And that's something which is now new to you. We are able to send in functions into other functions, which is called functional programming, right? You can send in functions to other functions, just as we did here. Print delegate is now defined here as a parameter, and print delegate could be print console or print to file, because both of them are of the same delegate type, print delegate. Awesome. Now before we continue, let's just fake some stuff here, do the insertion, and then we got insertion done. So because we don't want to do any real database stuff for sure. Now let's use our log. So we could say, for example, here log, and then something like insert in a new record into the database, and then in the next line we could say log the record is inserted or got inserted, record got inserted into the database. Awesome, great. So now we used our log parameter that we have right here of type print delegate, right? But what exactly is that? Well, it's defined in the moment that we call that connect to database, which we haven't done yet. So first of all, let's make that static, which makes sense. Now let's call our connect to database. So write down connect to database, and we can now provide a delegate as a parameter, or we have to provide it. And two delegates that we can provide are print to file or print to console, because they are of the correct delegate type, right? So let's say print to console, for example, which would be fine. So print to console, or we could even say print to file. Absolutely no problem. Both of them are valid, as you can see. Now you might be asking, why is that useful at all, right? Now people who do functional programming almost always pass functions to other functions to manage dependencies. And just like object-oriented programming, functional programming is also a programming paradigm. And for lots of use cases, functional programming, just as you can see it right here, turns out to be even simpler and more powerful than object-oriented programming. Now, if you want to learn more about functional programming, go ahead, write down in the comments below, I like functional. Oh yeah, and for sure, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video right now. Awesome, and this is how you can create delegates and how you can use them. Basically, just keep in mind, you can create functions which you can use and send in to other functions as parameters, just as you know it from default variables. If you're familiar with other programming languages, like JavaScript for example, you can think of it as the concept of callbacks. Because we call connect to database and we provide a callback function, and then we simply call that a callback or delegate in C# and we're done. Perfect. Now you know how to create C# delegates and why you should use them, and that there is not only object-oriented programming but also a thing called functional programming. Now if you liked that video and if it helped you out, make sure to give it a thumb up and to subscribe to our channel. If you really want to dig deeper into more advanced C# topics like ASP.NET Core for example, or test-driven development, make sure to check out our C# Progress Academy. I earlier talked about that in a video. You can find the link in the description below, and it's your fastest way to become a true C#.NET hero. So thanks for watching, and I see you next time. Have a great day.